that if there is then any subsequent return of any kind of extraterrestrial force later on, when they try to attack them, they will have already created in the mindset of the masses that it is the right thing to do to attack because they haven't come here for the benefit of mankind.
Yeah.
Well, in reality, of course, they may well have come for the benefit of mankind, because just consider this possibility. Henrik, one of the things that I had learned in my oilfield career, where I had the opportunity to work with people from many, many different nationalities, many different cultures, many different belief systems, that I learned that fundamentally the natural human way is to be cooperative and to show compassion.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I actually struggle to think of anybody that I came across during the course of my career in the oil field that I didn't fundamentally like. They're all great people.
Right.
But we are dealing here now with sort of, if you like, forces manipulating the agenda of mankind that do not share those qualities.
Yeah.
I mean, the last thing that I would consider these people to be is compassionate. They have an agenda, and that agenda is primary to all else. And if that means that they have to sell the soul of themselves, their mother, their grandmother, they will do it. So, let's have a look at the possibility that if there is anything in these ancient texts, and if there is anything in these guys' beliefs that they are the descendants of the Watchers, those 200 that were deposited on Mount Hermon those years ago, and that they are to be removed, if the people that are potentially going to be removed are those that have spent their multi-generational lifespans manipulating the planet, just think how humanity could move forward if left to its own devices of compassion and cooperation, without the manipulation of those people who genuinely believe that they are the rightful rulers of a global fiefdom. Perhaps if we have that, then somebody once said, I believe, the meek shall inherit the earth.
Right.
And that might be our opportunity to take a quantum leap forward.
I mean, in the talk that you gave at the conference, you mentioned, or it was entitled rather, the New World Order are fucked and they know it, basically. And and one interesting aspect to that, and that you also mentioned in your DVD, is the fact that these guys now who are at the top, who are doing all of this, the psychopaths, if you will, who are behind all of this, they might also play a very key role, so to speak, in the awakening process of humanity at large. I mean, if it wasn't for them all doing all of this, many people would still be kind of in the not be connected with their own spirituality, their own awakened processes. They would never have kind of woken up to a lot of this stuff that actually have enriched and enlightened their life. After
that's absolutely correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely correct, and I mean, I would include myself in that. I mean, we have to consider the possibility, because in the sort of intellectual quest for knowledge, one should not dismiss any possibility, of course. And we should actually consider the possibility that these people are doing us a tremendous service. Because like you rightly say, if it wasn't for their increasingly outrageously overt aggression, we wouldn't, have the opportunity to see through this charade. And we would still be all, deep in our slumbers.
Yeah.
So yes, I mean, I think that's a very good point you make, Henrik. And, we may actually have a lot to be grateful to these people for. That may sound, very warped in terms of the logic.
Sure.
But I think you're right, and I would include myself. If it wasn't for the events of 9/11, it would not have accelerated my own learning.
And I think a part worth mentioning here is that a part of that awakening process also, I think, is to follow through on that, meaning that we also have a obligation, if you will, here, or in to some extent, I don't know exactly how that's going to play out and so forth, but to actually also then take back the power that we have given away, meaning that, we can first recognize that these people are totally psychotic, they're evil, we can recognize that, and we can also see that they have been beneficial in this way. but to tie up the bag, if you will, here at the end, leading up to 2012 or whatever after, we don't have to focus too much on that date, of course, but what might happen after that point is that we actually also take back the power and actually, find ourselves in a situation where we're not controlled by these forces anymore. And with that being said, I'm a little bit hesitant to the idea that we don't have to do anything. We can just sit back and relax and wait for 2012, because at that point they're going to be, off the planet or whatever. I think that a lot of work has to be done here, and we really have to follow through on that. What do you think about that, Ian?
Oh, I think you're absolutely right, Henrik. I mean, there is no question. There are people who are absolutely adopting that stance of, it's all going to change in 2012, so all we got to do is sort of sit back and survive the next few years, and then it'll all take care of itself.
Yeah.
I don't believe for 1 minute that's the case. I mean, that's what Gurdjieff was talking about when he talked about, the way of the monk, and how selfish fundamentally the way of the monk is. Because the monk is fundamentally just sort of withdrawing from society and just focusing on himself, and not actually looking at, the contribution that he can make. Well, of course, there are people who still need to work on themselves. I mean, that is very important. And, I would encourage people to address the issues that they feel they need to address with themselves before they step out into the wider arena.
Yeah.
What we're talking about here is really the call to people who are ready to step out into the wider arena to play that role, because I think, like you, believe that we are actually in the process of shaping that post-2012 future. And the effort that we put in before, let's say, 2012, is going to be very, very important in terms of determining, what happens afterwards. And let me say that, one of the most important things is that we don't have a particular existential commitment to any particular outcome.
Sure.
We have to let this unfold as it will unfold, and be ready to accept, however it does unfold. And it may well be. I mean, let's, consider the possibility, because, I'm very sure that there will be a lot of people on December the 22nd, 2012, who are very disappointed.
Of course, yeah.
And it may well be that, just like any January the 1st, it's no real different from December the 31st.
Sure.
It's just the, turn of the year. And it may be the same, with the Mayan calendar. We just go from the last day in a 5,125-year cycle to the first day in a new one.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I think, may well be the case, and like you've touched on here, December 21st may simply be the fulcrum. It may just be the point at which the balance tips.
Mm-hmm.
And like you say, at that point forward, the domination of the New World Order will effectively start to come to an end. And it may well signal that new period when, as you rightly say, humanity, genuine humanity, has the opportunity to take control and take responsibility for itself, rather than subjugate itself to an external force. Yeah,
exactly. And also, very important here is the idea that, we have so many, how should I put it? It's like we can see, if we look at the actions that they're doing, that they are in a position where they are afraid of all of this now, because
most definitely,
we can see that they are striving for the control. I mean, what we talked about in the first segment with all the codex stuff, with all the food, GMOs, basically they want to control every single natural process that is happening. They even want to medicate the human beings enough so we're not, we're basically going to be turned into another species, if you will, almost. We're being,
exactly.
Turned into robots, if you will, and what I kind of take with me from that is the idea that they are so afraid of everything natural, every natural cycle that is happening, that they want to, with all their power now, try to prevent whatever is happening from happening. And I don't think that they have all the control, especially not if we consider the natural forces of this world, if you will, even the spiritual forces, but also, of course, nature itself and what is going to happen with nature. And I see that as a big kind of wild card in this game, if you will. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this kind of plays out here in the coming years.
I think that's a very good point. I mean, one of the things that we do know is that within the brotherhoods, they work very much with the occult, and they believe that they can control these forces.
Yeah.
And this is, part of obviously their rituals. I mean, the difference between them and us is they've learned this through their initiation processes in their secret societies. We have had to relearn this. We have had to learn this the hard way. We have had to establish our connect with the natural forces, through, if you like, experience. Mm. And, many people have different experiences, are having different experiences now that cannot be explained with Newtonian science. And as you will know, and as I know, and as many of your listeners will know, there are some incredible forces at work which are helping us as we move forward.
Yeah.
I mean, some of the way in which information finds its way to me is staggering. I mean, there are times when I know I'm missing a piece of a jigsaw. There's just something that doesn't give me the piece I need to link some of the components that I have. And I can pretty much guarantee that, within the next 24, 48 hours, that piece of the jigsaw will appear for me. I mean, that's just one example.
Right.
Now, there are many, many efforts to explain such occurrences, of course.
Yeah.
And it's like all things, the more effort we put in, the easier things get. Maybe you could argue that we simply recognize pieces of the jigsaw easier.
Right, right.
But, what occurs for us is way, way, way beyond the level of coincidence.
Yeah.
And, I think once we get into that flow, once we acknowledge that, we're just part of a massive stream, and we're just simply playing a very, very small part in all of this. But, it is important for the time being that we find this out for ourselves and we function individually. Because one of, I think, the great dangers is what I call groupthink.
Yeah.
It's the creation of organizations, of groups, the establishment of dogma, and what you try and do is you corral people into certain groupthink and you restrict their curiosity.
Yeah.
And I think we're in a period right now where, people should step outside of formal organizations or formal groups. Now is the time for people to establish, their individuality. And I think that, this is the transition period, if you like. And it is by stepping away from the groups, establishing our own philosophies, our own desires for the future, but working together, as groups of individuals as opposed to a group.
Right.
Work together as groups of individuals, while we have, if you like, common interests. But then, as and when we've, if you like, served a particular purpose, we can move away and work with other individuals and not feel tied to a particular philosophy or dogma of a group.
Very important. I'm glad that you mentioned that because I actually feel, very much the same in that regard that this is very much about your own, taking care of your own house first, so to speak, in a way. You're taking the responsibility, awakening, and also following your own, path, as it were. And I think when we do that in a way, we're also more in tune with those elements that you are referring to, with those spiritual energies, with the type of properties, if you will, that are playing alongside us when we're, when things like synchronicity occur, when we're really in tune with the inspiration, then these things are gonna become more and more. It's like the snowball effect. I think this is going to become more and more prominent in people who kind of follow their own path in this way, and I think that's a very important piece of the big puzzle here, and how the outcome of all of this madness that is happening right now, how that is going to play out, basically.
Yeah. Now, Henrik, I think the veil is getting very thin.
Yeah.
And there's a downside to that as well as an upside. The downside is that it gives malevolent forces an opportunity to attach themselves to the if you like, the uninitiated.
Yeah.
Or I use that that's probably an unfortunate term. But those people who haven't yet begun to sort of realize the magnitude of what's occurring.
Right.
And the manifestation of that, and I think we're going to see more and more of this